anything like me, you're probably plagued by constant, somewhat irrelevant questions. Why is it called Dr. Pepper? Why did everyone in the early 1900s wear hats? And why are so many bronies white supremacists? That last one in particular is something that's been bugging me. Because not only is the MLP fandom having a Nazi problem, an observation I've made, but I, like many others, have noticed a prevalent pattern prevailing through fandoms whose source material is wholesome and innocent, presenting morals and lessons meant for children. And that pattern is what I'll be talking to you about today. My Little Pony started off as a line of toys in the 80s targeted toward little girls. It did considerably well and had a few TV specials made of it. The toy line was revived again and again, some hits, some misses, but the fourth generation, in the year of our Lord 2010, is the real hook, line, and sinker, and what I'll actually be starting this video essay off with. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic came out, and it was a hit. And not only with little girls, but, shocking to many people, grown men. I'm sure we're all too familiar with the term brony by now, right? Bronies were a phenomenon that swept the nation and, well, even the world. The thing that has mystified many people is why? Why did this show, based on a toy line from the 80s targeted toward little girls, attract such a large crowd of men in their 20s? Why now? Why not earlier? Why in the year of our Lord, 2010, was My Little Pony so sensational specifically to young adult men? You could argue and say, well, because they were simply fans of the show. It's a decent show, it's adorable, it's mesmerizing, it has lovable characters, and, you know, they probably were touched by the simple morals that the show taught. And yes, that is true. I won't deny that. As someone who also ended up sucked into the show and its charm in my early 20s and interacted with the better part of the fandom, everyone was just really into the show because it was fun. But that doesn't detract from the fact that the reason this all even started was because of a little site called 4chan. If you're unfamiliar with 4chan, you are a very fortunate person, and I envy your existence. I'll spare you the nitty-gritty details and say that 4chan is an anonymous image-sharing website that's main demographic is adult men between the ages of 18 and 34. Prime age for adult white men. Due to the nature of 4chan, that is, being entirely anonymous and having threads and posts frequently pruned within a few hours, people who frequented the boards tended to exchange questionable, often illegal, content. Not only was, and still kind of is, 4chan a cesspool of racist and misogynistic vitriol, but it was a CP hotspot. Even if people weren't exchanging straight up CP, they were exchanging gratuitous amounts of hentai portraying underage characters. So, if you're paying attention, your typical channer is a white man somewhere between the age of 18 and 34 who hates women, hates black people, hates gay people, and loves kids. Once Friendship is Magic was released, an article was posted on the comics board criticizing the show for being extra feminist, which you can imagine is not what 4chan is about at all. Channers rushed to watch the show and make fun of it. But a lot of them ended up liking it. Pony content spread out to all the boards on 4chan. It was like a sickness. And then, lo and behold, it got to be the board where the most violent sexual content is exchanged and the most violent sexual macho men hang out. Yes, the random board on 4chan is probably the worst corner of the internet, and you can imagine a show that's all about love and friendship is the exact opposite of what B stands for. There were many exchanges of a certain derogatory term for gay people, you know the one, and a torrent of artwork with depictions of the MLP characters in sexual or violent situations to dissuade anyone from posting anything about ponies or even watching the show at all. Eventually, the bronies got their own pony board, but that didn't stop the onslaught of disturbing pony imagery from every corner of 4chan. As the show, and its following, gained popularity, the general public was hopeful. Young men were getting more in touch with their sensitive side, being taught lessons and morals that our society otherwise doesn't teach men, especially white men. In a world where men were raised under the idea boys will be boys, being taught that you're allowed to have feelings and friends who you love was very important. So What went wrong? Remember the word brony? Did you feel yourself cringe just now? That's because brony started becoming synonymous with someone who, whacked it to these cartoon horses. Yes, I know the, technical term, I'm not saying it. The thing is, while half the fandom started to embrace their more feminine side, the other half tended to lean even harder into their masculine side to defend their feminine interest. And to protect their masculinity, they'd create and post gory, grotesque, and sexualized content of the characters in the show. Because honestly, so many men are raised by society to think that they can only like anything girly if they're sexually attracted to it. Not to mention, they could frame their interest in the show as edgy or provocative, especially if you consider that, oh yeah, they were sharing the same fandom space with little girls. Yeah, you'd better believe that the MLP fandom in general was crawling with predators, preying after younger fans of the show. This is just an unfortunate truth about children and adults sharing fandom space. And I mean, it doesn't help when you consider where the original bronies came from. You know what else is edgy and provocative other than being into a little kids show and preying on kids? Being a Nazi. In all honesty, if you go from A to B to C, it's not too hard to make your way to Z at this point. Due to the nature and white male demographic of Channers, their sexual obsession with all things small and cute, yeah, of course the MLP fandom is gonna have a Nazi problem. Of course a lot of bronies are going to be predators. White supremacy and pedophilia go hand in hand, buddy. To quote the blog My Nationalist Pony, yes, that's a thing. The MLP fandom is as implicitly white as NASCAR, country music, and the Republican Party. Now, why so many bronies are so white? I was not able to get any straight facts on. Obviously, not all bronies came from 4chan. That's just where they started. Other adult men got into MLP because they saw these men get into it. Now, this is just a shot in the dark, but I'd say the reasoning behind this is just the crowd of people it initially attracted just attracted more people of the same demographic. That, and I personally feel that white young men brought up in normally conservative households aren't taught proper moral lessons quite as much as POC men, or men just brought up in more liberal households. So maybe the simple morals that MLP taught just especially resonated with white men. But like I said, that's just a theory. A white theory! Though, that doesn't really explain why so much other wholesome content has the worst fandoms, does it? It's 2021, and if you can believe it, Undertale has been out for over 5 years now. Even if you've never played it, even if you don't know the full story, there's a chance you are at least familiar with parts of it. Possibly the not-so-great parts of the fandom, obsessed with a certain skeleton. All you really need to know for this video is that Undertale is a charming pixel RPG with a clever twist. It's the RPG where you don't have to kill anyone. Meaning, instead of defeating all of your enemies in random encounters and grinding for experience, you are encouraged to wriggle your way out of fights by distracting, befriending, and showing mercy to the enemies you encounter. On the contrary, you can also play the game like you would any old RPG and cut through every enemy you encounter. But that leads to dire consequences, and not so rewarding, well, rewards. At face value, its morals are very cut and dry, teaching you about the importance of empathy, passivity, and friendship. Sounds familiar. Due to its very black and white morality, and quite possibly to its very lovable and endearing cast of characters, the fandom started policing how people would play the game, particularly streamers and Let's Players. If you would ask Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale, the right way to play the game, he would tell you to play it blind, to find out things on your own. In one instance, famous Let's Player Markiplier did just that. He recorded and edited a few episodes of him playing Undertale, going in completely blind, and killed off a few of the random encounters. Because that's what you do when you've never heard anything about this game. Mark was met with an onslaught of hateful comments on these videos, being told he wasn't playing the game right, some people practically equating him to an actual murderer. The hate was so bad that Mark stopped recording for Undertale for a while because he wasn't enjoying it because of the fandom's interactions. Why did such a cute little game with morals as simple as don't kill anyone and it's important to be kind and friendly to people cause such an influx of people policing others' morality? Not even how they play a video game! It's a similar deal to what happened with bronies. People raised without learning any real guidance or lessons about complex morals find good stories about what makes things good and what makes things bad. And when they run across something with easy to digest life lessons like Undertale or MLP, they see it as sacred, and they want its rules to be followed at all costs. Otherwise, it's sacrilege. However, while these people may uphold these values and expect everyone else to follow them, a lot of them don't seem to internalize them themselves. It's all just a game to them, for them to police how others live their lives and not actually self-reflect. In fact, I believe a lot of people in these cute fandoms with source material geared toward children were brought up learning these morals and do know better, and just don't want to work on themselves and would rather force other people to follow specific standards. And it really helps to have a cute and innocent front if you're the one telling people what's wrong and right. And that brings me to the big one. By now, you're probably understanding the pattern here. My Little Pony, a cute show with simple morals, attracts an older audience than intended. Undertale, a cute game with simple morals, attracts an older audience than intended. Steven Universe, why, another cute show with simple morals attracts an older audience than intended. Steven Universe is yet another show that was meant for children that attracted an audience of 20-somethings like My Little Pony, but this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't leagues of mostly 20-year-old white men, but leagues of 20-year-old, mostly gay, Tumblrites. And what are the 20-year-old gay kids on Tumblr infamous for? That's right, social justice. The term social justice warrior, as it is used today, cropped up on Twitter around 2011, used to describe people who fiercely fought against social justice issues. More talks about social justice, what was considered wrong and right, racism, homophobia, etc. were being had. And these were very important conversations. However, some people took things incredibly too far, making call-out posts, dogpiling users after digging up problematic things they said. It was like people were trying to get points for how many people they could call out, even for things that they've long since apologized for. Steven Universe was a show praised for its wonderful storytelling, explicit queer representation, and, you guessed it, lessons in morality. Just like Undertale, people started seeing everything as black and white, either good or bad, and it infected the entire community. If the show dared to touch on subjects that were morally gray, or a character did something that was problematic in any sense, fans would lash out, get angry, and dogpile fans of that character. In one unfortunate incident, a Steven Universe fan artist drew one of the characters, Rose Quartz, skinnier than she is portrayed in the show, and received a ludicrous amount of backlash for it. Not only were SJWs picking apart this piece in particular, but all of their pieces, to the point where they attempted suicide. But what causes this to happen? Why do so many things that try and push an agenda about being kind and compassionate toward your neighbors incite so much hatred and violence toward those who step out of this line that has been drawn? And not even that, it almost seems like so many of these fans will reach and twist the intended message of the content in order to defend their own hateful behavior towards certain groups of people. It almost sounds like a cult. Wait, or like... God showed his wrath to thee. Now, am I crossing some sort of line comparing fandom to religion? Absolutely. But if you think about it, the reason fandoms that center their themes around morality and life lessons end up turning into witch hunts against people who don't follow the morals that the source material lays out, it's the same reason this happens in religion. There are a lot of manipulative people in the world, and there tend to be a lot of these people that are part of religions and fandoms. These people see these spaces meant for growth and self-reflection and take the opportunity to tell other people how they're supposed to grow and self-reflect while not doing it themselves. Now, If I see you commenting underneath this video, "Hey, I'm in that fandom and I'm not bad," I'll know that you didn't watch the whole video. Because here I am to tell you, I know. Not everyone in these fandoms were bad people. Not even the bad people were bad people. I don't think these people were intentionally bad. In fact, I'd say the great majority of these fandoms were wonderful people, and a lot of people were able to find themselves and other great people through these communities. I have friends who are trans women who didn't realize they were trans women until they got into My Little Pony. And I've known people who didn't realize they were processing trauma of past relationships until a certain episode of Steven Universe about that. These communities did do a lot of good, but there's no denying that the bad eggs were especially bad. When it comes down to it, the reason that content that's grounded in teaching people better morals always attracts bad people is all content attracts bad people. Simply because there are bad people in the world, and they will find ways to weaponize well-intended messages and manipulate others with them. These fandoms are just louder than a lot of others because of the sheer size of them, and the fact that the contrast to their source material is so incredibly stark. Not to mention, these shows and games and movies are meant to teach younger audiences. When adults consume this type of content, they are going to approach it from the angle of an adult, expecting deeper and more nuanced themes, and reading too much into things that aren't even there. Adults who know better look at these lessons and don't internalize them and force others to follow these standards. Now, if you're someone who was or is in one or more of these fandoms and you're seeing yourself, I'm not trying to say that you're malicious or even a bad person, but I am saying, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, that you need to grow up and stop being so afraid of working on yourself.